If name equals main, then we run our programs. But what does it actually mean? Here's the simplified take. If you've used Python for quite some time, you've probably noticed this type of syntax. In many cases, we include it without understanding what it means or why we even need it, which is probably not the best practice. So let's quickly explore it from a beginner's friendly perspective. So first of all, what exactly is name? Well, name is a special variable we use when we interact with modules. It allows us to make a distinction between the modules we import and the modules we do not import. Now, so far, I was using the term module to describe packages and libraries, such as pandas and pygame and so on. However, this is not the only definition of a module. A module is a self-contained piece of code. It is logically separatable from other pieces of code. It is so independent that we can copy a module from one program, we can then reuse it in another program, or we can even execute it all on its own without any other code surrounding it. So if that's the case, not only libraries are modules, but also functions and classes, and most of all, any Python file you have ever created is also considered a module. So if we take it back to the name variable, we can say that it allows us to make a distinction between A, the modules that represent libraries or external functions and classes which we are able to import into our code, and B, the module that represents the current Python file we are executing in our console, the file into which we import those functions and classes and libraries. Now, the best way to explain this is with a code example. So if you're not sure what I mean so far, you will in just a few seconds. So let's say we have a Python file named myprogram.py, and it contains a single line of code that just prints this is a module. Now, when we run this file in our console by typing python myprogram.py, as soon as we hit enter, we are dealing with something called top-level code, as in the entire content of my program is considered top level, which basically represents the entry point into our application, what I've previously referred to as the current Python file we are executing. However, what if we need to import some kind of a library? So let's say we need pandas in order to create a data frame. Well, in that case, the import statement as well as the print statement are still considered top-level code. However, the data frame is not considered top level because we have borrowed a class from a module which we have never specified in our console. I mean, there is no pandas in Python myprogram.py, and that's the exact distinction that the name variable helps us solve. It uniquely identifies the top-level module and separates it from the rest of the modules. And actually, that's exactly where main joins the party. So unlike name, which is a variable, main is actually a value. It is a string. Main represents the name of the top-level environment in which top-level code lives. So by checking if name equals main, we are actually checking if the code we are executing is top-level or not. So for example, if we add an additional print statement into our file and we pass the global variable of name into it, our console will return main. Perfect. However, if we try to access the name of pandas, we are no longer dealing with a global variable, but with an attribute of pandas. And in that case, our console will return pandas instead. Now, what if we import pandas as PD? Do you think this will affect our name attribute? Well, let's check. And no, pandas remains pandas regardless of the as keyword. We will see shortly why. Now, what happens in cases where our import statement is very specific? What if from datetime we would like to import the time zone class? Well, in that case, the name of time zone is time zone. However, datetime does not have a name at all, unless we specify it within an additional import statement, and then the name of datetime is, of course, datetime. So the rule of thumb is we strip away the .py extension from any Python library which we can find in our operating system, and yes, datetime.py is an actual file which we can view and we can modify as long as we have Python installed. Now, once we strip away the extension, we use the name of the file as the name of the module. And that's exactly why the as keyword didn't have any effect on our pandas import. Now, if we'd like to fetch a specific class from within this file, so for example, the date class or the time zone class, we simply use the name of the class as the name of the module, and voila. This basically explains our time zone example. So perfect. Now we know exactly what name and main means, but why do we need to check if they match before we run our programs? Let's have a look at an example. So let's say we have a Python file named importme, and it contains a function named callme, which simply prints a short message. Now, at the very end of this file, we also make a call to the callme function because, well, it politely asked us to, so we might as well. Now, when we run this file in our console with python importme.py, we get our print statement and everything works as expected. However, what if we add another file to the mix? So let's say that in addition to importme.py, we have runme.py. And the only purpose of this new file is to import the callme function from the importme module. There is no other need in this file and there's no other code involved. Now, a very interesting thing happens when we execute this file in our console. We type python runme.py, we hit enter, and boom! We can see the output of callme in our console once again, even though we have never made an official call to this function. Runme.py simply includes an import statement. So it seems that simply by importing a function from a module, we also accidentally execute this module. So the main purpose of if name equals main is to prevent this automatic execution from happening. Now, if we add this condition inside importme.py right above our function call, we can then safely execute runme.py without worrying about this extra print statement just popping out of the blue. So we're basically restricting the behavior of callme only to situations in which importme is the top level module. In cases in which it's the imported module, our call to callme will never manifest. And that's exactly why if name equals main is so important. Now, thank you so much for watching. If you found this tutorial helpful, please share it with the world and don't forget to give it a huge thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos of this kind, you can always subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell. If you have anything to say, please leave me a comment below with any questions and any requests for future tutorials. If you'd like to be extra social, you can always join our Discord community, where you can chat with many talented developers. I'm including the link in the description, of course. And yeah, I'll see you very soon in another awesome tutorial. In the meanwhile, bye bye!